Have you ever stopped to think that your financial life can change so quickly and unexpectedly that even you'll be surprised? It seems exaggerated, but it's not. What I'm going to show you here isn't a fancy theory or an empty promise. It's something real, direct, and based on a secret that many never put into practice. Psalm 126 isn't just an ancient prayer. It's a powerful key that can unlock locked doors in your life, especially in the financial realm. Anyone who's ever felt trapped in debt, suffocated by bills, or with that feeling of working and never getting anywhere, will understand what I'm talking about. This psalm speaks of such powerful reversals that even others will look at you and say, God did this. Imagine going from scarcity to abundance, from tears to joy, from daily struggle to an unexpected harvest. This is exactly what Psalm 126 promises, and I want to show you, step by step, how to use this prayer with faith and how to put into practice the principles that have transformed the lives of thousands of people around the world. So if you're tired of living on a shoestring, get ready, because this video isn't just another motivational piece. It's an invitation to experience the biggest turning point in your financial life. Stay with me until the end and discover how this promise can come true in your life. Now you understand how Psalm 126 can change the course of your financial life and bring about seemingly impossible turnarounds. This word opened your eyes and gave you clarity that God can transform scarcity into abundance. It's only fair that more people have access to this truth that's impacting you now. So, like and subscribe to the channel so this message continues to reach lives. Write your message in the comments. Restoration, because that's what you're going to start living from now on. Have you ever noticed how life has moments when it seems like everything falls apart at once? It's as if we're trapped in a cycle of overdue bills, worries, and the weight of seeing no way out. And in these moments, many people give up hope, believing they've tried everything and nothing will change. But that's exactly where the secret of Psalm 126 comes in. This psalm wasn't born in times of abundance. It was born in a period of pain and hardship, when it seemed there was no way out. And yet, it brought a promise of restoration so powerful that it continues to transform lives to this day. This shows you that hope isn't just a pretty word. It's real fuel for life-changing change. When the psalmist says, "When the Lord restored the captivity of Zion, we were like those who dream," he's showing that God's turnaround was so impressive that it almost seemed unreal, like a good dream. Now think with me. If God did something so great back then that no one believed, why wouldn't he do it again today? This is the first key you need to hold firmly. Hope cannot die, because it's what keeps your heart connected to what's to come. I know you may be tired of hearing about waiting, but what I want you to understand is that it's not passive waiting, it's active waiting, with expectation, believing that your financial story hasn't ended where it is now. And this is where a powerful detail comes in. We often look at life as if we were looking at a dry field with nothing growing, and we become discouraged. But the Bible shows that even in the desert, rain can come suddenly, and when it does, it transforms everything. Hope works the same way. It keeps you believing that the rain will fall even when the sky is clear, and it seems like nothing will happen. And I know you've probably thought something like this. I've tried to believe, I've trusted, but things are still difficult. It's precisely at these times that hope shows its strength, because it's not based on what you see now, but on what you believe God can do. One thing I want you to do now to actively participate in this moment is to comment on the word hope below. Write this, because it's not just a comment, it's a public declaration that you won't give up on believing that your story can change. When you write, you not only connect with this message, but you also inspire others who are going through the same thing as you. Notice how clearly Psalm 126 conveys this idea. It doesn't say the people were restored because they had abundant resources, nor because they found the solution on their own. It says it was the Lord who restored, and that changes everything. Hope isn't in a better salary, a loan, or unexpected help. Hope is in God, because when he decides to act, nothing can stop him. And this applies to your financial life. No matter the debt, no matter the size of the hole, no matter how many doors have already been closed, when God acts, even those who doubted you will have to acknowledge that it was he who changed your fortunes. And I want you to imagine for a moment what that restoration would look like in your life today. Maybe it's finally getting out of the red. Maybe it's being able to pay off that debt that's been keeping you up at night. Maybe it's simply breathing a sigh of relief without fear of tomorrow. What matters is that hope is the first step to making this happen. Without hope, you give up, you paralyze yourself, you let opportunity slip by. But when you hold on tight, you set yourself on the path to seeing the impossible happen. This is the point I wanted to make clear to you. Don't underestimate hope. It's the foundation of everything. Without it, faith loses strength, prayer loses intensity, and life loses direction. But with it, you begin to see beyond the chaos. You begin to believe that the same God who acted in the past will act again. And do you know what the most impactful part of all this is? This hope, when nurtured, produces results that no one can dispute. The people of Israel wept, but when the promise was fulfilled, even the other nations looked on and said, "The Lord has done great things for them." Now take a deep breath and think with me. If even nations that didn't believe in God had to acknowledge what He did, what will it be like when people who know your struggle see the turnaround He will bring about in your financial life? This won't just be a personal relief, it will be a powerful testimony, and that's precisely what begins the moment you decide to keep hope alive, even in the midst of difficulties. And the most interesting thing is that this hope doesn't walk alone. It opens the door to something even stronger, which you'll discover in the next step. Have you ever noticed that those who achieve great changes in life always look within themselves before looking outside? This is precisely what Psalm 126 and the teachings of great spiritual leaders demonstrate. Vision and faith go hand in hand as the starting point for any transformation. The psalmist wasn't just describing a fact, he was declaring something that seemed impossible but would become reality. He spoke of restoration before it was even before our eyes. This is the essence of the principle of vision, believing in the unseen, projecting into the heart what doesn't yet exist, and walking as if it were already a reality. Here's a detail many people overlook. Your life today is a reflection of what you've believed and visualized over the past few years. If within you only images of defeat, scarcity, and fear exist, that's what you continue to feed into, your future. But when you decide to change what you project internally, when you begin to see yourself restored, debt-free, experiencing a new financial phase, something begins to align in your mind and in the spiritual world. This is what gives strength to faith, the clear vision of what you believe God will accomplish. Many people pray, but they pray without expectation, without clarity, almost like repeating words without truly believing. This type of prayer doesn't generate transformation. True faith comes with vision. That's why it's so important that you begin to see with the eyes of faith what doesn't yet exist in the natural world. For example, instead of saying, "I'll never get out of debt," declare, "God is already giving me strategies and opening doors for me to experience financial freedom." This changes the way you think, the way you act, and opens space for God to do the impossible. Now, let me ask you a direct question. How have you seen yourself lately? As someone defeated, always expecting the worst, or as someone who is already prepared for the restoration God has promised? This answer is very important because how you see yourself determines how you will act and even how you will pray. That's why I want you to comment below on the word vision to affirm that from today on you will see yourself differently. This simple gesture already begins to change your mindset. Psalm 126 shows this in a very practical way. The people were in a time of drought, but the psalmist already spoke of an abundant harvest. He saw the outcome even before it happened. This isn't fantasy, it's faith in action. Great transformations begin this way. Someone who dares to see beyond the current reality and believe that God is powerful enough to turn everything upside down. And it's precisely at this point that vision connects with the hope of the first topic. It's no use just waiting. You need to wait with a clear image within you, with the conviction that it's already yours. And the most impactful thing is that when you keep this vision alive, even in the face of struggles, you begin to attract different attitudes. You no longer complain as much. You no longer give in to discouragement, because within you there is a certainty. Change is coming. It's as if you're watching the trailer for a movie that hasn't been released yet, but you already know how it ends. This is the power of faith accompanied by vision. Now imagine what happens when this vision begins to be shared. Just as the people of Israel were a witness to other nations, your faith and your way of seeing yourself will inspire others. You go from being someone who only talks about problems to someone who conveys hope and certainty of victory. This not only strengthens you but also builds credibility with others. And here's a detail that will move you. Vision and faith don't eliminate tears from the process. The psalm says that those who sow in tears will reap in joy. In other words, even if the path is difficult, vision keeps you steadfast, faith sustains you, and the harvest becomes inevitable. And that's precisely where the connection lies with what comes next. Because after understanding the importance of vision and faith, the next step is to learn to use the memories of past victories as fuel to strengthen that vision and not let it die. One of the most powerful things you can do when everything seems difficult is to remember what has happened in your life. It seems simple, but it isn't. Memory has the power to lift a person up or tear them down. When you choose to remember only the defeats, the mistakes, and the closed doors, you lose heart, feel heavy, and become filled with fear. But when you remember the times God has opened a path, lifted you out of impossible situations, surprised you when you saw no way out, your heart fills with courage, and you can believe again. This is exactly what Psalm 126 shows when it says, "When the Lord restored the captivity of Zion, we were like those who dream." It is remembering what God did, bringing back to mind a turnaround so great it almost seemed like a dream. This is a spiritual key that almost no one uses. Many are always asking for new things, but they don't stop to remember what they've already received. This is dangerous because those who forget past victories lose the confidence to hope for new victories in the future. Now think with me. How many times have you said it wouldn't work out, that it was over, and in the end something happened that you didn't expect? Maybe it was a job opportunity that suddenly opened, a debt that was resolved without you realizing how, or even God's care in the details of everyday life. This is no small thing. It fuels you to continue believing that He will do it again. And you know what's most interesting? When you bring these memories to the surface, your faith gains strength because you stop focusing solely on your own abilities and begin to see God's hand. The psalmist didn't say, "We are restored." He said, "The Lord has restored." This difference changes everything. Your past victory wasn't because you had abundant resources, but because God acted. And if He already acted once, He can act again. This logic is simple yet powerful. It's like looking back and seeing footprints along the way. They prove you weren't alone, that He was always there. Now let me break the ice with you. When was the last time you stopped, took a deep breath, and thanked God for something specific that has already happened in your financial life? It doesn't have to be something huge. It could be that moment when you were at a loss and someone helped you, or that month when it seemed like the money wasn't going to be enough, and then suddenly it was. Well, this is proof that you haven't forgotten, and if it's happened before, it can happen again. I want you to write the word here in the comments, memory, to mark this commitment to bring to mind what has already been done. This is not just a comment, it is a reminder that you are taking responsibility before God and before yourself. When you begin to remember, your heart opens to new possibilities. You stop looking at today with despair and start looking at it with expectation. This doesn't mean denying current problems, but it does mean seeing that the God who helped you back then is still the same now. It's precisely this attitude that transforms prayer into results, because the prayer of those who remember past victories is filled with gratitude and certainty, not despair. And I know you might be thinking, but my struggle today is much bigger than the ones before. I understand, but I want to remind you of one thing. For God, size isn't an issue. Yesterday's victory may have seemed small, but it's just as valuable as proof of His care as the victory you hope for today. And when you combine that memory with the promises of Psalm 126, something powerful happens. Your heart is strengthened, your faith is renewed, and you begin to declare with greater confidence that the impossible will happen. This is the difference between those who give up halfway and those who persevere until they see a miracle. Those who give up are those who have forgotten what God has already done. Those who persevere are those who keep the memory alive and use it as a weapon against discouragement. And this leads me to an even deeper reflection. If remembering what He has already done is so powerful, what will it be like when you learn to transform even your current tears and pain into seeds for the harvest to come? There's a part of Psalm 126 that really touches those going through struggles. Those who sow in tears will reap with shouts of joy. How powerful this is. God isn't saying you'll only reap when everything is going well, when you have money to spare, or when conditions are perfect. He's saying that even in times of pain, in times of crying, in times when it seems like there's no more, you're planting something. And this planting isn't in vain. Weeping may last all night, but the harvest comes in the morning. And here's a key that many people overlook. Tears are seeds too. Perhaps you've asked yourself, but how can I sow if I have almost nothing? How can I believe if I only see closed doors? That's precisely where the principle comes into play. It's not about the amount you put in, but about the faith with which you do it. Every prayer you offer with tears, every step of faith taken in the midst of difficulty, every time you obey even when it hurts, all of this is being sown, and in due time that harvest will come. It's like planting in dry ground. You sow the seed, and it seems like it will never sprout. But when the rain falls, what was hidden begins to grow. And do you know why this is so powerful? Because the enemy always tries to convince you that pain is useless, that suffering is a waste of time. But the truth is otherwise. Every tear that falls before God is recorded. Nothing is forgotten. And when he decides to act, what once seemed like loss becomes multiplication. I know this may seem hard to accept now, but if you look back, you'll realize that in many difficult moments in your life, it was precisely there that the greatest victories were born. It is in pain that you learn to depend. It is in scarcity that you learn to trust. It is in struggle that you develop resilience. Now I want you to do something simple, but very important. Write. The word here in the comments, harvest. Write this as an act of faith, declaring that the tears you've shed will not be wasted, but will turn into fruit. This comment isn't just a statement. It's like planting your seed in good soil, showing that you believe your harvest will come. And let me give you a clear example. How many times have you worked hard on something and it seemed like no one saw it, no one appreciated it? But one day, out of nowhere, someone recognized it. A door opened. An opportunity arose. That's how it works. Planting time is silent, painful, and full of sacrifice. But harvest time is noisy, celebratory, and full of recognition. Psalm 126 doesn't speak of just any harvest. It speaks of reaping with joy so great it cannot be hidden. This principle of sowing in tears also breaks a common lie, the idea that only those who have a lot can change their lives. This isn't true. Those who plant with faith, even in small things, pave the way for multiplication. The Bible is full of stories like this, people who had little but gave wholeheartedly and then experienced abundance. What makes the difference is not the size of the seed, but trust in the one who will give the growth. So remember this. Nothing you're experiencing today is in vain. Every tear is a seed, every sacrifice is a seed, every prayer is a seed. And when the harvest time comes, you'll look back and understand that everything made sense. And it's precisely at this point that Psalm 126 takes us to the next step, because after understanding that even tears are seeds, comes the need to pray with expectation, not just as someone performing a ritual, but as someone who is certain that the harvest is already on its way. Do you know why many prayers fail? Because they're offered without expectation. It's hard to say, but it's true. Many people pray merely as a ritual, repeating words to ease their conscience, but without truly believing that anything will change. It's like sending a message and never expecting an answer. But prayer isn't like that. Psalm 126 clearly shows that when the people cried out for restoration, there was expectation, there was living hope that God would act. Praying with expectation is believing that every word you speak is reaching God's throne and that He is already preparing the answer. When you pray with faith, something changes within you. It's not just about asking, it's about trusting. It's like when you ask something of someone you trust, you don't feel insecure. You know that person will deliver. With God, it's even more certain. But what happens is that many kneel already doubting, already wondering, will it work? Will God hear me? This doubt robs prayer of its power. Now, when you position yourself and pray as someone who is certain, you begin to align your heart, mind, and even your actions with what you're asking. David Yonggi Cho always taught about the importance of being specific in prayer. It's not about praying vaguely. It's about stating exactly what you hope for. If the psalm speaks of restored fortunes, that's what you should declare. Financial restoration, open doors, opportunities, debts paid off, a new phase. The clearer you are, the stronger your expectation. Because prayer isn't just a vent. It's an act of faith that moves the supernatural. Think about it. If you go to the doctor, you don't just go in and say, "Doctor, I'm feeling bad," and leave it at that. You explain, you detail, because you want a real solution. It's the same with God. When you pray, be clear, and expectation comes into play at this point. You don't just speak, you begin to give thanks as if you've already received. That's the secret. You ask and you give thanks. You speak and you already believe He is acting. This is praying with expectation. Now let me challenge you. When was the last time you prayed and truly believed that the next day you would see the answer? I'm not talking about praying and forgetting. I'm talking about praying and waiting with good anxiety, like someone waiting for an important package to arrive. That's the difference between someone who prays with expectation. I want you to write the word here in the comments, faith, because by declaring this you are already positioning yourself differently. You are showing that you will transform your way of praying. The most amazing thing is that when you start praying this way, even the way you speak to people changes. You no longer speak with discouragement, but with hope. You don't say, "I don't think I'll ever get out of this situation." You say, "I'm in the process of restoration, and I'll soon testify." This creates a different atmosphere around you. People notice, the atmosphere changes, and even opportunities seem to approach. It's not magic, it's faith in action. And here's another important point. Praying with expectation also prepares you to act. God opens doors, but you need to walk through them. Prayer strengthens your faith and gives you direction, but expectation keeps you ready to act when the opportunity arises. It's like a farmer who plants and prepares the barn for the harvest because he's certain it will come. This attitude is what transforms prayer into visible results. Now imagine how powerful it will be when, in addition to praying with expectation, you begin to understand that this answer is not just for you, but also for being a living testimony of God's faithfulness to those around you. And that's exactly what Psalm 126 will show us in the next step. There's a part of Psalm 126 that's simply breathtaking. Then they said among the nations, "The Lord has done great things for them." Do you see what this means? It wasn't just the people of Israel recognizing the miracle. It was other nations, outsiders, people who didn't believe, admitting that God had done something great. This shows us that financial and personal restoration isn't just about living a better life. It's about revealing God's glory through your life. Testimony is an essential part of the process, because what God does in you doesn't remain hidden. It becomes a visible sign to others. Think about it. How many people have doubted you? How many have looked at your situation and said, even silently, "There's no way out"? Maybe they've even mocked you, or even had people close to them tell you you couldn't do it. Now imagine the impact when those same people have to acknowledge that it was God who changed your story. There's no denying it, no making excuses, because the testimony is so powerful it speaks for itself. This is the power of restoration. It silences the critics and makes room for faith to flourish even in those who doubted. Testimony doesn't need to be forced. You don't need to explain, convince, or try to prove anything. When God acts, the results are visible. It's like someone who was sick and was healed. No need for a speech. Their health speaks for itself. The same happens in your financial life. When you get out of debt, when you begin to prosper, when you see doors opening, people notice. And they don't just notice, but they recognize that there's something bigger behind it. And you know what's even more powerful? Testimony multiplies. What God does in you can ignite faith in others. Your restoration becomes a spark that awakens hope in those who had previously given up. That's why you can't give up now, because your victory will serve as an answer to many who are watching your journey, even those you never imagined are watching. Now I want you to do a simple act here to mark this understanding. Write the word in the comments, testimony. This is more than just writing a word. It's declaring that your victory will be public, will impact people, will glorify God. Write this down and see yourself as someone who will have a real story to tell. And let me be honest with you, it's impossible to have a testimony without first going through a test. And perhaps What you're experiencing today is precisely that test. But the test isn't the end. It's preparation for what's to come. Psalm 126 makes this clear. First came the tears, then the harvest. First came the pain, then the restoration. Testimony is born from the contrast between before and after. The greater the struggle, the greater the impact of victory. Now imagine what it will be like when those who look at you with suspicion today have to acknowledge the great things the Lord has done in your life. This will not only be a personal relief, it will be a milestone for everyone around you. And it is precisely here that we can understand another key that will keep this process going: perseverance and spiritual discipline, because without them, the testimony cannot be sustained and the restoration can be lost. One thing almost no one talks about, but which is essential, is that restoration doesn't happen overnight like magic. Yes, God can act instantly, but most of the time, He works in a process, and it's in this process that two keys that sustain everything come into play: perseverance and spiritual discipline. Because the truth is simple. There's no point in having faith one day and giving up the next. There's no point in praying full of expectation today and then falling into discouragement tomorrow. Restoration requires constancy. David Yonggi Cho always repeated this in his teachings. The secret is not just believing, but staying strong, not giving up. He said that spiritual discipline is like breathing. It's not something you do occasionally. It's something that needs to become part of your life. And this applies to everything: prayer, reading the Word, practicing faith. Perseverance isn't sitting around waiting. It's keeping going even when the road seems long. Think about it. How many times have you started something exciting and then lost momentum halfway through? This happens because of a lack of discipline. It's the same in the spiritual world. You can even start with enthusiasm, but if you don't have perseverance, you won't see the harvest. It's like planting a seed and giving up watering it because you don't see it sprout within a few days. It doesn't make sense. The seed is working in the silence of the earth, but you need to keep tending it until it emerges. The same logic applies to your financial life. Even if change doesn't happen overnight, you need to maintain faith, prayer, and practice the principles. And let me tell you something straight. God honors those who are constant. He's not looking for perfect people, but faithful people. People who, even when facing difficulties, continue seeking, continue praying, continue declaring victory. This constancy creates deep roots. Because spiritual discipline isn't a burden, it's a lifestyle that strengthens you to avoid falling into the traps of discouragement. Now, I want to give you a practical example. Imagine someone who decides to pray every day for their financial future, but on the third day, because they see no answer, they stop. This person isn't exercising perseverance, but if they continue, even without seeing anything in the natural world, they are showing true faith, and it is precisely this faith that God honors. So if you've made it this far, I want you to write the word in the comments: constancy, to make a commitment not to give up halfway through the process. Another important point is that spiritual discipline isn't just for times of crisis. It's also essential after restoration arrives. Because it's not enough to conquer, you have to maintain it. How many people have you seen receive a great blessing only to lose everything because they lacked the necessary infrastructure? That's where discipline comes in. It's what keeps you aligned, what makes you value victory, and what makes you remain faithful. And the most incredible thing is that perseverance and discipline not only keep you standing, but also shape your character. The process of waiting, of holding firm, of not giving up, transforms you into someone stronger, more prepared, more aware of what truly matters. And when victory arrives, you're no longer the same person. You're more mature to manage what God has placed in your hands. Now think about something. If Psalm 126 has already shown us that hope, vision, the memory of victories, tears, expectation in prayer, and witnessing the results are fundamental, what happens when you combine all of this with perseverance and discipline? You become unshakable. And it is precisely in this posture that the path opens to the most impactful part: boldly proclaiming the turnaround, knowing that the next step is not just believing, but declaring that the harvest has already arrived. After everything Psalm 126 shows us, the most important moment arrives: proclaiming the turnaround. Because it's not enough to just believe in silence. It's not enough to just wait and pray with expectation. You need to Declare out loud, affirm with conviction, that your financial life is in the process of transformation. When you open your mouth and speak, you're not just expressing a wish, you're establishing a spiritual reality. This is what many don't understand. Proclamation is part of faith. The people of Israel didn't just remember the past restoration, they celebrated, spoke, and proclaimed it. It was so great that even other nations recognized it. The same thing happens to you. When you begin to declare, you take a step of faith that moves heaven and earth. It's not about denying problems. It's about placing God above them. It's saying, my story will not end in the red. I believe in an abundant harvest. I declare complete restoration. These words aren't pretty phrases, they're seeds you plant with your mouth. This is where the entire process comes to a close. Hope, vision, memories of victories, tears, expectant prayer, testimony, and perseverance culminate in this final act of proclamation. Because what you say has power. If you spend your time saying that nothing changes, it undermines your faith. But when you decide to proclaim what God promises, you are aligning yourself with what He has already determined. And let me be blunt, don't wait for the situation to improve to start declaring victory. Start now. It's precisely in the midst of difficulty that proclamation carries the most weight. It's easy to say God is good when everything is going well. But when you're struggling and still open your mouth to declare that you're going to experience financial upheaval, it touches God's heart in a powerful way. Now you've seen how Psalm 126 opens the way for real transformation, bringing hope, vision, and faith to create financial turnarounds that seemed impossible. This message has already begun to change the way you look at your life, and it's precisely this impact that can reach even more people when you like and subscribe to the channel. This is a simple way to multiply the blessing that has come to you. Write your message in the comments below, victory, because it's already being written into your story. And it doesn't stop there. The next video will take you even deeper into this path of restoration, revealing keys that complete everything you've learned today. Click and continue because what's about to come will change your life even more.